Lee Svinson. I hope I said that right. Michelle and Lee, they are representing Ohio.
You know.
Oh, I know you guys. Yes. I recognize you by sight, but not necessarily by name, but now I can do both. Yeah, you guys have been on my show.
Yeah. We've been on your show, Brandon.
Yeah.
Do you guys know he's wearing cowboy boots right now? He looks pretty, I saw that behind the curtain. Pretty awesome.
AKA the Resistance Chicks. People might know.
That's who you guys are. That's who they are. Yeah. How could you ever forget you guys? All right. You know Dr. Frank?
We do. We're very good friends with Dr. Frank.
You're from the same state, so I was hoping you did. All right. Well, let's get to your slides. Here we go, girls. Explain this. And if you want to look behind you.
Okay, here's the thing. Everybody thinks if you live in a state that Trump won in, that nothing happened. Nothing went wrong. Well, I'm here to tell you, if nothing went wrong in Ohio, then how come our voter rolls are growing faster than our population? We just so happen to have the data man himself living in our state. So I have conversations with Dr. Frank about these things. Why are our voter rolls growing faster than our population? That's what I want to know. Are
what's
they
the answer?
reproducing? Fraud. It's very simple. It's an algorithm. They are pumping these numbers into our system. This is fake. It is fraudulent. It is happening in your state, even if Trump won, and it's happening in Ohio. So the next slide that we have, I love that these are up here behind. Okay, how come, again, with Dr. Frank, because we're a little biased because he's from our state, how come we can now predict the different ages? There's Dr. Frank right there. How come we can predict the different ages by one county? Dr. Frank is able to take the numbers from one county in Ohio and then predict the voters in every single county in Ohio. If nothing went wrong in Ohio, why are we able to do this? That's what I want to know. We have fraud in Ohio. Trump won. Dr. Frank's numbers show that Trump probably won Ohio by 16 points. They say he only won by 8. I have a problem with that.
Yes, ma'am. You want to say something? I can tell.
Yeah, so we have a Secretary of State in Ohio who, because of the 2020 election, put right there on the Secretary of State side that says, we have secure elections. Don't worry about our elections whatsoever. You can vote with complete confidence. His name is Frank LaRose. And we actually had somebody running. We had an ex-Navy SEAL, John Adams, and he was going to go after voter fraud here in, well, not here, you're in Missouri, but where we were in Ohio. And we have open primaries in Ohio, which means that Democrats can vote for Republicans. How many of you have that? Wow. We have to get rid of open primaries.
Former Navy SEAL with a great name, John Adams.
Yes.
I mean, that's the perfect
could have been
candidate.
our Secretary of State. He was awesome.
And, and basically the Democrats went and voted the Republican primary and knocked him out?
150,000 Democrats crossed over to vote in our open primaries.
For Republican. You know who else they voted for?
Who?
Well, we have a Republican governor. Have you heard of Mike DeWine?
Yes.
He's actually a Democrat. And so they voted in our primaries for Mike DeWine. So that is one of our greatest impediments is how are we going to get these rhinos out if the Democrats are like, well, I just love Mike DeWine. He's fantastic.
Okay.
I don't care.
Okay. So you're skipping ahead on the slides, which is totally
sorry,
fine.
there's a slide on that.
But can you give me the next slide here, Brandon?
It's right behind you.
No, we did these ones.
Oh, you did
we
these
did all
already?
4 of them because the 2 of them.
I can hardly keep up with you guys.
So we're trying to get through this really fast because there's a lot of information. There's 50 states and there's a lot of N's because we were waiting for a while. Okay, so we had in Ohio, I want to give you guys some examples before we get to what we're actually doing in Ohio to fix the problem. In Stark County, the Stark County commissioners sued the Stark County Board of Elections to get rid of the machines. They had just signed an agreement with Dominion. They sued to get rid of the machines. They won the suit. And guess what? The machines are still there. That's a problem. That's a very real problem.
So you can go through the courts. Everybody says, well, just go through the courts. Just go through the courts. Well, when you do,
yeah,
they're not going to
keep the machines.
Yeah, exactly.
So we also have friends that are a part of Ohio Precinct strategy. They went to our hotbed of satanic, demonic hordes in Columbus, and they tried to...
Well, how do you really feel about it?
That's how I really feel. Well, how long do you have, Brandon? So they went to Franklin County to legally get incident reports that they paid for. They were blocked at every turn, and they had to wait weeks to get this stuff. They are trying to cover up something in Ohio. I don't care if Trump won. Fraud happened in Ohio, or they wouldn't be trying so hard to cover it up.
Yeah, we're sisters. Yeah, we can't tell we're sisters.
Yeah.
You know, we had somebody run as an independent. His name was Neil Peterson. He's awesome. He's a pastor. He got the signatures he needed so that when we go to this we say he got them. But we have a Secretary of State who says that he did not get enough signatures to get on the ballot to run as an independent. And they went, oh, signature verification. Oh, look, wait, I don't think that signature quite looks like that signature. They couldn't do that in 2020, but they could do that to keep an independent off the ballot because we were going to run the tables on Mike DeWine. We were going to do it. I'm telling you, this is where the corruption is at the top. The last 3 of our speakers of the House in Ohio are Republicans, and they have had to resign because of corruption. It's not just enough to vote for Republicans anymore, you guys. We have to go at this with the power of God. We have to take everything that we're doing here, and we have to go get on our knees before God because those seats are demonically held, and only the courts of heaven is going to get those seats back where they need to be.
Come on.
Now you know why they are called the Resistance Chicks. Thank you, ladies.
I'm going to tell you guys something. Pastor Neil Peterson had these signatures. They kept this man waiting until beyond the deadline. Beyond the
Secretary of State, he had his signatures in May, and they said, oh, you're going to get your signatures. We'll get your signatures. They waited till afterwards. There's so much corruption, but I'm going to tell you what we are doing in Ohio. There are several organizations. Janet Porter's got one.
Yeah, she's got, you can send cards to your legislature, defund the fraud, I think, or decertify the fraud, decertifiedfraud.com. But also what Leah and I are doing is a Patriot Pastors movement, and we are pulling together the ministers in Ohio to stand up and speak out and say, enough is enough. We are going to change this through the power of God. We're going to preach it from the pulpits. We are going to stand up. We're not going to back down, and the kingdom of God is going to advance. And no weapon formed against any election machine or anyone in this state or anyone in this nation is going to stop us. And the Patriot Pastors movement is going to do it. The kingdom of God is expanding, and it's going to happen in elections.
So you know what we did in Ohio before our primaries? We got every Patriot candidate we could together. We had Joe Blyson and Mark Bakita and John Adams and people running for whatever, dog catcher. And we had all the pastors that we could get together. And I'm going to tell you, there weren't very many in Ohio who would come. I had so many candidates there. You want to know what those candidates wanted? They wanted prayer. We had a revival with the candidates who wanted prayer. We had Roman Catholics, we had Baptists, we had Pentecostals, and that's how we get this back. We have to get our candidates together. We have to go to God and ask him, hey, God, what do you want us to do
here?
So
I want to challenge you guys in every state. You want to do what we did. You want to get every person that's running in any primary, in any election together before their election, and you get them together and you say, listen, I don't care about your ego. If you really believe in what's best for this state, we're all going to get together and we're going to pray for who God wants to be elected. And then we're going to cast the devil out of those machines. And that's how we're going to win this thing.
That's Resistance Chicks. Thank you, guys. Now you know why they're called the Resistance Chicks. Thank you, guys. Well, if you were starting to get sleepy, you are wide awake now. All right, Oklahoma is up next. Wow, Oklahoma has a big contingency over there. Gayleen Stupik, how are you doing?
You know, I have to say, you were very brave to say that last name out loud. Most people at a microphone cringe. It's pronounced Stupich.
Okay, well, I tried. I get credit for trying, right?
You get a lot of credit.
All right.
That is wonderful.
Thank you. Let me get your PowerPoint up here.
There we go.
Okay, explain this.
All right. So we are the reddest state in the nation. We had all 77
we just went through your
counties.
state.
Absolutely. And it looks very conservative because the soil's red. It is truly a red state. So one of the things that I discovered, well, I've been working elections for about 10 years. I went from judge, clerk to precinct inspector. And these machines were purchased in 2012. You probably recognize them. But one of the things we discovered as we were presenting information to our Attorney General, who did not win the primary because he was looking into this, was that there was a 3G chip modem that was removed in 2020. Now, it did not, the documentation did not say that they replaced it with 4G or 5G, but we're pretty sure they did. So one of the other big things that happens in Oklahoma, just as it does in other states, obviously is chain of custody. So one of my jobs, I'm very active in the Republican Party. In fact, after taking a hiatus for about 5 years after 2020 election, somebody conned me into running for vice chair to Oklahoma County GOP, and I'm their worst nightmare. So one of the things we discovered in state law is that any voter in Oklahoma, and I want to encourage every Oklahoman that's watching this, you need to go and start watching your absentee ballot opening process. It does help to read the law first. You can search for it online. When you search for it online, you can find out that you can even videotape it because it's part of the Open Meeting Acts. We have discovered that that little picture of the ballots are sitting on a couch in an office at an election board. The office is unlocked and nobody's inside. That's a problem. Okay, it's a little easier to see the words up there.
It is.
So this last thing over here is that obviously we have dirty voter rolls too. So we might be the reddest state, but that's only when you're looking at it from a national level. The truth is, over really probably the last 10 years, it's our down ballot races, our school boards and our city councils that have been flipped to communist, not just a little bit Republican versus Democrat, full-born communists giving us CRT and all the ugly stuff that you see going on in the schools right now, and even in the cities. And even my own Republican mayor right now is doing some pretty progressive stuff. But you can see, I don't know if you can see it on the big screen, but one of the things that we found is in one of our little counties, and we're not talking Oklahoma County, we're talking one of the little counties, 636 addresses that started with up caret, comma, Oklahoma. How do you figure out what precinct they live in? 636, that makes a big difference. So in May, once we finally got redistricting done from the census, our county election board mailed out to every single voter in Oklahoma County voter ID cards. 65,000 were returned undeliverable. That made the news. Our county election board secretary said so. So I had a friend who has a really big computer compare our voter rolls from May 1st to August 12th, 10 weeks. In May 1st, in that time period, I was looking for a reduction in number of voters because of that 65,000. You would think they'd be removed, right? In 10 weeks, Oklahoma County gained 112,000 voters.
Wow.
What? That doesn't make any sense. So some of the other strange anomalies, and this is an interesting thing. We have a time traveling voter. Back in one of our local elections in February, we had a woman get married, change her name, and we could watch, because it's all online, the voter registration system is the EDW. We can watch the data and see the progress of her ballot being adjudicated in February. But when they finally counted her ballot, they gave her credit for voting in April. On February, I'm trying to remember what the date was, like February 10th. Ballots weren't even issued yet for the April election. That's a problem. And in one of our canvassing, we found a gentleman living in an RV park who actually is a resident of Tennessee, and he was registered to vote in 2012 in Oklahoma. He's never voted. He didn't even know he was registered to vote in Oklahoma. I just got a text from another friend of ours that is back in Oklahoma, and I gave it to our Wisconsin representatives here. He received 4 requests for absentee ballots from Wisconsin in 2020.
Oh, wow.
So I sent that picture to the folks in Wisconsin so they can take it back and say, see, we have some issues here. And then one of the other things that our people found in the absentee ballot process, we require an affidavit. That is our proof that that voter is who they say they are. Well, these election board officials had no idea when we started showing up. They've never been watched before. So I want to encourage anybody in the state of Oklahoma, as a part of the Public Meeting Acts, get there, show your video, or be there with your video cameras. One of the things we discovered is that they are opening absentee affidavits with no notary on it. Those ballots should not be counted. That is not a legal ballot. So I just want to put some encouragement out there. The other thing I want to also mention is, if you're not already involved in your Republican Party in the state of Oklahoma, you have some authority as a voter in Oklahoma. As the representative vice chairman in Oklahoma County, starting June 1st of 2023, for the first time in the history of our state, we are going to submit a Republican name for every single precinct, +2. That way, he has no excuse for pulling people in off the street to work in a precinct, because our law requires one Democrat and one Republican. That's not quite how it's written, the party of the majority and the party of the second majority. But we need those witnesses at every precinct, and I promise you that's not happening now. It's also not happening on the absentee voting board. I submitted 10 names back at the 1st of June. He hasn't used them yet. I promise you he'll be hearing from us. We are approaching this rather than on a canvassing and legal matter, going through the legislature, getting good people elected who will support us and run legislation and support legislation. But that took some serious niceness and understanding that they can't understand what we're talking about, because it's taken us 1.5 years to get this far. One of my gigs is, and I'll share this with you for free and then I'll sign off. I'm staying at a little motel that was built in 1926, and I love this little thing because it can't be hacked like my car keys can by somebody in China. This person can be arrested. This person you can't even find. Let's get rid of the machines and
Great
go
point.
by hand.
Great
Thank
point.
you.
Gayleen, representing the great state of Oklahoma. Thank you, Gayleen. Now, Oregon, Janice Dysinger, representing Oregon. You can go to that far one if you want, and we'll pull this mic down. How are you doing, Janice?
I'm doing great. Great to be with you. I just love watching you on the free speech.
Frank Speech?
Frank Speech.
Well, you're
Yes,
very kind.
free
Thank you.
speech.
Thank you.
I have to tell everybody, I'm so thankful to God to be here. And I want you to know people around the country are praying for all of you. And when you get enlisted in the work that he has for you to do because of all these people praying, you're going to see some real miracles happen.
Thank you, Janice. If you want to look behind you as well, it's bigger than down here.
Well, I have to tell you something first. I got a phone call from the election director, Deborah Scrogan from Oregon, after I did some training on election observation. And she told me she didn't like my presentation, and she didn't agree with it, and that I couldn't talk in public about elections without quoting the Oregon Revised Statute.
Well, she's going to tell you what you have to say now.
Yeah, she told me I could not talk about it without saying that. So I just want everybody to know you can go to OregonLegislature.gov and look at any of the statutes that I talk about or any election law. It's there. And then I want to remind her and anybody else that we have a First Amendment right.
Absolutely, Janice.
And we have a Ninth Amendment right. And that actually 18 U.S. Code, 18 U.S.C. 242 says that anybody that intimidates you under the color of law is committing a felony.
Good for you. I love it how you're quoting the law back at them. Wow.
This first slide over here, you'll see our lovely Coos Bay had a problem. The electors down there requested the ballot images and raised the money, which was $1,800 to get that. And when they did to go get it, after they had paid it, they found that it had been destroyed. That's against federal and state law. Have to keep it for 22 and 24 months, respectively. And so they said, okay, well, we'll wait until you get your backup copy and get a copy of that. Oh, we don't have a backup copy either. No prosecution. She quit the next day. No prosecution since then.
Wow.
We're doing a lot of canvassing like the rest of you. I just will say that on average, we're seeing about a 20% problem.
20%.
Yeah. And the third one?
The May of 2022 primary?
Right. We had May Wong in Clackamas County, a Metro candidate. Was
she from China?
Yeah.
I think I interviewed her at CPAC last year.
She's really a neat lady.
Yes.
So she had COVID right after the election, and she couldn't focus. She woke up early in the morning, and she just took screenshots. These were about 8 minutes apart. And this is 4:30 in the morning on a Sunday, and the election record changed by thousands of votes, and it did up and down thing over the next couple of weeks. It went down 3 times. So we thought that was very interesting. She is not being allowed to get a recount in her election. They refused to give her, even though she requested it on time, and tried her very best to do everything that they said she was supposed to do.
This fourth one?
The fourth one is in that same county. They had a barcode problem, and there were 60,000 ballots that had to be duplicated so they could be run through the tabulators. And so we want to see what the actual count would be if we went back to the original ballots for that. But she's being denied that access.
Give me a couple of your roadblocks real quick.
So, let's see. Our legislature is producing a very fraud-friendly state. We have legal ballot harvesting. Same vote by mail is universal throughout the state. That's all we have is vote by mail. We have automatic voter registration, and you have to wait. You're opted in. You don't have a choice, and you have to wait until 3 weeks after the election to get a postcard in the mail to establish your political party, or you're going to be registered NAV.
Oh, wow.
And that NAV is just growing like crazy, and the rest of the parties. Because are you expecting a postcard 3 weeks after you've visited DMV to change your voter registration? Let's see, we have 16-year-olds that are registered to vote in our state. They don't get to vote until they're 18. But they still are registered to vote. We have no ID is required, no residence is required, no residential address is required, and no citizenship proof is required. You don't have to prove any of that. You can testify to all those things by showing up at the office, the elections office, and saying, I'm here to register to vote and I don't have any ID. And if I could tell you a real quick little story, I was in the office one time getting some other information, and in walks a gentleman, and he said, I live in New York, and I'm here. Yesterday, I registered for the Oregon Health Plan. So I got that all done. I tried to register for my voter registration online, but it wouldn't let me use my driver's license. The clerk said, well, it has to be a current driver's license. Is yours current? And he said, no. So he said, well, we can use the federal postcard application. That's the clerk suggesting how he could get around the requirements, and he said that doesn't require any ID. So and he said, well, the guy from New York said, well, can I get a certified copy of that so I can go to DMV and get my driver's license? And he said, absolutely. And that's how it goes in Oregon.
And so he could go vote now.
Yeah, and the clerk said, be sure and keep your address up online, address current, so that you'll get your ballot.
Wow, Janice giving us a report from Oregon. Thank you, Janice.
Yeah, I have another thing I really do need to tell you.
Squeeze it in there.
Okay, we had a guy, Tim Sipple from Washington County, and he had requested a records request for the SQL database, for the public test.
Right.
And he was refused that request, even though the DA said he could have it, it was a public record. And so not only the county clerk, but the Secretary of State enjoined a suit against him so he couldn't get it. Well, in the meantime, I had requested the ballot images from the same county, and it took me about a month to get them, but anyway, they were finally ready, and I couldn't get to them, and Tim lived close. I said, can you go get it? What he did, and he brought it home, and he was going to make a copy for himself, because I had gave him my permission. And in that pile of ballot images was the SQL database for the entire 2020 election.
Wow.
They didn't mean to give it to us, they said later, and they put a restraining order against him so that he couldn't give me my data. And now it's under a protective order. And Jim O'Donnell and Dr. Franks and some other very highly qualified experts are looking at that data, and there's going to be a trial on September 20th, and I hope you guys listen for the news of that, because I think it should be very interesting.
I think it should be too, Janice. Wow. Janice from Oregon. Thank you, Janice. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.